make fulfilling lives at a higher level. And so we're so excited to have you. You also help teenagers, manage their stress during exams. And so I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being with us this time.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very thankful. I'm very privileged to be here.
Great, thank you so much. So we have so many questions, and for part one, I just want to ask you a very simple question. It's really, Steph, what do we do as parents to help cultivate optimism and a growth mindset in our gifted child?
This is a really great question because it applies to everybody. As adults, we should be working on cultivating optimism. It's even more important for a child, obviously, and I'll explain you why. Our brain has got a huge negativity bias. I always joke and say it's Velcro to negativity and Teflon to positivity. What I mean by that is that on average, we have 3 times more positive experiences throughout one day. And at the end of the day, when when the day ends and we go to bed, what do we remember, Lawrence?
The negative, of course, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what the brain does. So in order to live a happy, fulfilling life, we have to bring a new balance to this brain thing. And the way to do it is by cultivating optimism. And the more we do it as a regular practice, we actually rewire our brain to live more optimistic and fulfilling and happy lives. And obviously, the younger you start, well, the better your life is going to look. So I'm going to give you a few maybe examples or practices that you guys can do with your kids.
Yes.
I think with children, it's really nice to keep it very laid back and not too formal. So, but I think the first thing is when you pick up your child from school or when you see your child, for the first time in the day, it's about really being careful about which perspective you put on the questions you ask them and trying to make sure not to be too open. What I mean by that is that instead of asking your child, oh, how was your day, darling? What happened? Instead, it's about placing the laser light on positivity, giving them the opportunity to look back through their day and to look for the good stuff that happens. So the sort of questions that I ask my children, for example, instead of how was your day, darling, would be, oh, what was your best moment at school today? What did you enjoy learning today? What game did you play in the playground that was super exciting? Who was really nice with you today? Do you know what I mean? Instead of throwing very open questions that give them the opportunity to go and pick up the negative stuff, which is what we do by default, it's orienting them towards looking for the good stuff. Does that make sense?
You're targeting their response almost, right? You're guiding their response, right? Almost.
Well, we're not finding the answers for them, but they have to go back through their day with a different pair of lenses. Because the standard one, if we do nothing, the brain is going to pick up negative stuff. And there's nothing in reliving unpleasant events that happen throughout the day, right? And I think another thing that I practice myself with my children is gratitude. In a very informal manner, but every evening before we have dinner, again, ask them, what are you grateful for today? 3 things. Name 3 things. So at first, kids are a bit puzzled and they're like, oh, I don't know, especially teenagers. But then, I give them little examples, okay? So, well, it was a very sunny day today in London. That's something to be grateful for. It doesn't happen very often. Or you had a day with friends, you have a lovely friendship. And give them opportunity to find a few things that they're grateful for.
This is powerful. And simple tips you can incorporate in your daily life, right? All those tips, because it's not something you have to book from 7 to 8 and our lives are so crazy. It's something you incorporate. And I love that, Steph.
And by giving the opportunity to your every day to go back in their head through their day and to pick positive events that have happened, they are actually, with repetition, rewiring their entire brain. They're building their prefrontal left cortex. That's very important for happiness and well-being. Another trick that I have is the magic jar. So I don't do that very often, but maybe once a year. And I really enjoy doing it when we have guests in the house. Maybe for 3 days or for a week. I don't have a jar. So I go and buy a little jar like that. And I put a Post-it note with everybody's name on it. And every day, everybody in the house puts a paper, a Post-it note folded into everyone's jar with something they love about the person, something they admire, something they enjoyed, something positive and kind. And then at the end of the period, whether it's 3 days or we all sit down and read through the papers. So this activity is awesome because it releases what I call the awesome juice. So, you know, there are all these neurotransmitters that are released in our brain and our body, like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphin, oxytocin, the love hormone, that are being released when you do that. Those sorts of, you know, little activities where you actually notice that people unconditionally love you, and when you are actually showing kindness to others.
That makes sense.
Kids tend to really like that. And they feel really proud when they see, and we don't know where, you know, the papers usually are anonymous. So you don't know where they come from. It's a really, really nice, sweet thing to do.
Oh, that's amazing. And they probably feel so good about hearing all those good things. It's amazing.
Everybody feels good, you know, sometimes. I pick that my kids have written about me. You know, as I always tell people, being a mom is a little bit like being a customer services operator on the other end of the line. Usually people call you because there's a problem. They never call you to tell you, oh, you're great, thank you so much, you're doing a great job. So as a mom, we just
100% agree.
So it's pretty nice, you know, once in a while to actually see little love notes and from our kids. So it works both ways. It makes everybody feel good, and it's you know, and it's like a fun family thing to do together. And by doing that, we cultivate optimism as well.
And what about growth mindset? I know some of our kids are perfectionists. They can get anxious about failure and about, you know, performance. Any tips on that? Growing that growth mindset.
This, you know, this perfectionism thing. Perfectionism is one of the 3 pillars of happiness. And for some reason, we almost more or less have it. We all have this sort of underlying really bad belief that we're not good enough. And especially nowadays with, you know, social media and social comparison, we always need to be perfect, but perfection doesn't exist. So I think one of the tips I would give parents is to actually demonstrate to their kids that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. You know, children don't. I was reading recently, obviously I'm a happiness expert, not a children's expert, but I was reading the other day that up until the age of 7, children do not rationalize what happens to them. They take it through emotions, through experiences without realizing anything. So there's only so much you can explain to a child. And I think with perfectionism, probably the best thing to do is just to demonstrate to them on a few recurrent occasions that you're making mistakes and it's fine. And my eldest child, she's nearly 15 now, she's a bit of a perfectionist. She puts a lot of pressure on herself, way too much. So when I remember when she was younger, I used to purposefully make mistakes when I was baking. And actually, tell the girls, no, I made a mistake. There's 1 egg too many. Oh, the cake is going to be disgusting. Oh. And then eventually smile and laugh and say, the cake is going to be fine. I am not perfect and it's okay. And then everybody would laugh. So I used to it's a way of, the best way for them to understand that it's okay not to be perfect is just by demonstrating it ourselves, if that makes sense.
Modeling it. That's right. Yes, that's right. There's so much pressure, and and it's What I love about what you say is that it's something that is cultivated, right? It's something that you work on, and in the brain, it helps the brain just create neural pathways, and like simple things, right, done consistently can lead to great results, right? Because that's amazing to think about it this way.
Absolutely.
Because
And you know what's amazing, Lawrence, is that sometimes there are very little and easy things that if we do regularly,
mm,
create amazing change. I'm not a big
mm.
fan of
You say
big.
train. I, I heard you say
So
train the brain. It's amazing to think
it
about it
is. It
this
is.
way, right?
It's, it's a form of brain fitness. Yes, absolutely.
Mm,
It's actually neuroplasticity. It's our ability to change the structure of our brain through repetitive activities. And the beauty is that, I mean, neuroplasticity is quite new. The beauty is that we as parents now really have the ability to help our children. Because when I
mm,
was a kid, these things didn't exist. So
that's
we
right.
now know all these little behaviors, these little changes, these little conversations that we have, when they're recurrent, they really create sustainable changes, positive changes for our children.
Mm, oh, this is amazing. Optimism as a habit, right?
It
Growth
is.
mindset as a habit. I love
It is.
it. Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask you about when you mentioned the negative bias, um, like all those tips you shared with us, like the specific open-ended questions, the drive exercise, the list. I believe you're saying like everything that's good about your day, right? So do you really have like a set of tools, like sort of like in your belt, and then you could just pull them as you have your intuition you think is going to be good for your child, like you mentioned, like once a year you would do the draw exercise, and is it something
This,
that you really flex right on the moment, or is it
excuse
something
me.
that
This
you
is exactly how it works. So it's about, and this is exactly how I work with my clients. I have a set of tools that are science
mm,
backed, that works, but all tools are not
mm,
right for every person. Some we will enjoy doing and some we
mm,
will not. It's about trying them and just pulling them out regularly. But the secret is about regular practice. Okay, nobody's
mm,
got magic wand here to solve any problems or to better any situation. It's just about repetitive practice of little things.
mm,
And when there is variety, obviously, the brain likes variety, likes new stuff. It gets excited with new stuff. And children love variety. So, yeah, maybe it's about
mm,
doing gratitude on Monday and then on Tuesday, for people who, in my area in London, people tend to walk back from school. I'm really lucky I live by the river. So, and on the walk back, it would be okay, let's play a game. Let's look around and name every beautiful thing that we see. And
like
you
that.
would be surprised and this is a mindfulness practice actually, and you would be surprised at all the amazing things that kids will notice. When spring
Mm,
comes up, animals start coming out, trees are blossoming, birds are singing. And again, it's about
mm,
training our brain to notice all these beautiful things. And also, when you train your brain to notice, you're actually training yourself in mindfulness. So, two
mm.
birds killed with.
Wow. I love it. I absolutely love this. Is amazing stuff, Steph. Hey,
Does that
so
make
I
sense?
think yeah, it's simple and it's actionable. So that's why I really like about your insight that it's very actionable, right? And simple things that we can implement like now, right? Today, like decide on one of those tools and love it, and try and experiment. So I love it. We're getting closer to our second topic, part two on emotional regulation. So, what I would like to do with our audience is to take a 5-minute break. And still put in any comments from the previous part, but we can resume in a couple minutes. And we'll jumpstart with stress, emotional dysregulation, and how we can help our gifted child. So let's take 5 minutes and then we'll be right back, okay?
See you later.
Okay. See you later.